Employee engagement is a cognitive, emotional, and behavioral investment individuals make in their own. Together, psychological empowerment and engagement drive human-centered, just, and sustainable organizational practices. With the problem statement, the combined role of psychological empowerment and employee engagement in fostering a sustainable human-centered work is not well addressed. Most studies examine this construct separately, overlooking their interplay in promoting organizational justice and sustainability. With the research gap, limited research examines how psychological empowerment and employee engagement together foster human-centered work that promotes meaning, equity, and sustainability across cultures and sectors. This study addresses this gap. With the research objective, it is tried to cover these objectives to examine psychological empowerment and its impact on employee behavior, analyze employee engagement role in promoting productivity, well-being, and sustainability, investigate how psychological empowerment and employee engagement interact to foster human-centered work, explore how empowerment and engagement contribute to organizational justice and sustainable practices. With the methodology, integrative literature review was designed, and the source is Scopus in the Web of Science, and the sample is 27 articles. Thematic analysis and the narrative synthesis are integrated in the analysis section. Theoretically, the research was backed by self-determination theory, job demand resource model, and the human-centered work is also backed by ILO's decent work framework. The key themes identified are autonomy and the meaning, trust and the leadership, learning culture, sustainability and the justice are the four main key themes for this study. The findings related with these four studies, with these four key themes are: with the autonomy and the meaningful work, purpose-driven work empowers and engages employees. With the rational trust and the leadership, transformational and ethical leadership fosters trust, safety, and commitment. With the learning culture, shared learning and the knowledge embeds empowerment in daily practices of the organization. With the sustainability and the justice, equity, fairness, and stewardship are most important. Here, as you can see, this graph shows that these terms coverage. The green one indicates mostly covered. Psychological empowerment, employee engagement, autonomy, and the meaningful work are mostly covered. What not mostly covered is relational trust and the leadership and the organizational learning culture. And sustainability and ethical commitment is barely covered, mostly absent, which is the future direction of the outcome researchers. Implication: theoretically, this study implies that integrating self-determination theory and social exchange theory extends OB, organizational behavior, and human resource management into sustainability, ethics, and well-being. Practically, institutions and international bodies like ILO should promote empowerment in workplace policies to boost engagement and sustainable practices. Corporations, NGOs should prioritize leadership development, participative decision-making, and learning cultures to foster ethical, engaged workplaces. Policymakers embed autonomy and justice principles into labor framework. Global initiatives like sustainability and the ESG should use empowerment-driven engagement to advance SDGs. Conclusion: psychological empowerment strengthens employee engagement. Empowered engagement promotes productivity, well-being, and justice. Ethical transformational leadership fosters trust and amplifies outcomes. Learning culture embed empowerment, inclusiveness, and resilience. Psychological empowerment embeds sustainability-oriented behaviors. Okay. With the future directions, future or outcome researchers, upcoming researchers should explore cross-cultural and sectoral variations. They should examine in the future longitudinal effects on ESG, environmental, societal, and governance outcomes. And they should investigate technology's role in empowerment, drive, and engagement. I think for today this much is enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmed, for the interesting presentation. And next presentation is by two presenters. Who would present it? Devdas should present it, or Fida would present it? Devdas should present it. They would speak on curated pluralism, vernacular silences, multiculturalism, and heritage politics in Mattancheri. Please come on speak. Dave, you have 8 minutes for presentation and another 2 minutes for Q&A.
Good evening to one and all present here. I'm Devadar, and today I'll be presenting a paper titled Curated Pluralism, Vernacular Silences, Multiculturalism and Heritage Politics in Mattancheri. And this paper is jointly authored by me and my friend Fida. We are currently pursuing our bachelor's in international relations from SIRP. So rather than going for an academic kind of presentation, I would like to go with a narrative kind of style. And today I'll be focusing on Mattancheri's multicultural setting, Mattancheri, a historic ward of Kochi. It is about 9 kilometers southwest from the city center. So if you walk through Mattancheri at dusk, you might hear the call of the musicians overlapping with church bells and the distant echo of temple chants. The scents of pepper and spices still lingers, reminders of centuries old Indian Ocean trade. So this port town, once a historic crossroad of Arab, Jewish, Portuguese and Dutch exchange, is today framed as a symbol of peaceful coexistence. But beneath the image lies a politics of memory, where some stories are celebrated and others are quietly erased. So after independence, Kerala's cultural policy reimagined Mattancheri as a heritage tourism site. Museums, art festivals, and heritage walks now project a narrative of harmonious multiculturalism. Yet this curated harmony often silences the subaltern histories, those of Dalit dog workers, fisher folks, women spice laborers, and the Malabari Jews who shaped the city's plural past. In this sense, Mattancheri represents a broader post-colonial dilemma: how the state commodifies diversity through heritage, turning lived pluralism into a tourist aesthetics. So as of literature review, scholars since 1990s are actively engaged in collecting the flashy kind of multicultural settings in Mattancheri. So Nilima Jayachandran and Amit Jain traces how heritage revival reshaped the city's economy, and Ashish Nandi views Kochi's cosmopolitanism as mythic, a collective fantasy that reconciles colonial trauma, whereas Homi Baba's idea of vernacular cosmopolitanism reminds us that hybridity is not lived, it's not merely allied. Meanwhile, subaltern scholars like Guha and Spivak and heritage theorists like Laura Jean Smith reveals how heritage discourses privilege dominant narratives while erasing marginalized voices. So what I found here as a research gap is, while Kochi's multiculturalism is widely celebrated, little attention has been paid to how heritage policy itself silences the vernacular cosmopolitanism in Mattancheri. So as of methodology, I here adopted a qualitative and interpretive method. I conducted discourse analysis of tourism brochures, travel blogs and film portrayals. I also carried out semi-structured interview with local guides, shopkeepers and community elders who have witnessed Mattancheri's transformation. So this kind of blend of textual and oral source helped trace the tension between curated representation and lived memory. So rather than calling it as a findings, I would like to call it as my observations. The politics of curated multiculturalism. Since the 1990s, state-led heritage projects, especially the Kochi Mysteries Biennale, have branded Mattancheri as a global heritage destination. Colonial architecture and European aesthetics are valorized, while histories of slavery, caste and labor exploitations are marginalized. As Laura Jean Smith notes, this is HD or authorized heritage discourse, that is, heritage as a top-down narrative of harmony designed for global spectatorship. So as of the vernacular cosmopolitanism and the subaltern memory, beneath the tourist spectacle, everyday pluralism survives. Dalit top workers and fisher folks maintain shrines to Kapiti Muthappan, believed to honor African slaves killed by Portuguese. And women spice workers and Malabari Jews sustains oral traditions and hybrid dialects like the Cochin Creole. These practices represent vernacular cosmopolitanism as embodied, resistant form of belonging that refuse all kind of erasure. And the representation or manifestation of this in popular culture is very interesting. Films such as Chota Mumbai and ABCD aestheticize Kochi's hybridity through comic or exotic stereotypes. Tourist media reproduce this pattern, turning suburban life into a consumable imagery detached from its historical context. To conclude, or let's say rethink, Mattancheri's celebrated port of pluralism must be revisited through lens of vernacular cosmopolitanism, centering the lived pluralism of labours, women and Dalit communities. True inclusivity means addressing exclusion of caste, gender, race and class within the heritage governance. Heritage must evolve from aesthetic restoration to social restoration, from curated memory to participatory memory. And still there are some questions which will always stand here or always float here, which are who truly owns post-colonial urban spaces like Mattancheri, and can heritage become not just a symbol of beauty, but a practice of justice and belonging? Thank you.
And our next speaker will put together all the Q&A towards the end. So next speaker is Jijin JS, who would speak on living equity and justice, the enactment of EWS reservation in India.
Hello everyone. My topic is Unlike Equity and Justice, the enactment of EWS reservation in India and the role of cinema. The introduction of the 10% reservation for EWS category, economically weaker sections of forward caste through the 103rd Constitution Amendment in 2019 has triggered intense debates across legal and political and social domains. Unlike earlier affirmative measures in India that were explicitly grounded in caste as a marker, EWS brought in income as a criteria. So, while the amendment passed with overwhelming political consensus and received judicial endorsement, its implications remain deeply contested. Proponents argue that poverty among upper castes deserve recognition within the framework of affirmative action. Critics contend that reconfiguration dilutes the original purpose of reservations, which was to dismantle entrenched caste hierarchies and promote social equity. So in this contested terrain, media and popular culture play a critical role in shaping public opinion and legitimizing state policies. Cinema particularly functions as both entertainment and pedagogy, transmitting values and ideologies that influence how citizens understand justice, equity and entitlement. So we know the affirmative action in India, which is very much related to caste, and the caste system is a structural inequality where people are divided into different layers and all. So the EWS category or EWS reservation comes as a benefit for the forward caste or economically backward. So there is a criticism that can't it be solved by just a welfare measure, or is poverty being seen as a criteria for affirmative action? So the questions I put forward are: how does cinema represent or silence caste? How do films normalize class-based EWS reservation? How do narratives reflect middle-class aspirations? And the role of spectatorship in EWS in legitimizing EWS. So the study employs an interdisciplinary qualitative approach, integrating genealogical history, cultural studies and ethnography. This allows for an analysis that is historically grounded, culturally situated and attentive to power relations. So the paper examines films that foreground themes of merit, aspiration and middle class struggles. So we take the case of films like 12th Fail, Arakshan and a couple of Malayalam films. So in 12th Fail, it's based on life of an aspirant from humble beginnings, widely celebrated for valorizing hard work and meritocracy. Although it does not mention caste indirectly, its erasure of caste realities aligns with the EWS narrative. Various films like in Malayalam, like Jacob in the Sudrajyam and all, focus on middle class anxieties and aspirations, constructing narratives where success is achieved through perseverance rather than structural reform. So the primary sources are films itself. Secondary sources include policy documents, parliamentary debates and all. So the results are, some of the results are meritocracy as the central narrative. Films valorizing individual hard work and perseverance often frame success as detached to structural inequalities. Erasure of caste. Mainstream cinema frequently omits explicit representation of caste oppression, even in context where it is socially pervasive. Middle class aspirations as the cultural core. Cinema often mirrors and amplifies middle class anxieties, job insecurity, unemployment and competitive exams. Cinema as an ideological state apparatus. By naturalizing meritocratic ideals, films function as Althusian ideological state apparatus. Audience are sutured into the narrative of the hard-working individual who overcomes adversity, often without questioning the structural inequalities that persist. Cultivation of cultural numbness. The cumulative effect of these narratives is a societal numbness towards the exclusions produced by EWS. By projecting poverty as a universal caste-neutral experience, films silence debates on caste-based oppression and contribute to the hurried acceptance of class-based reservation. So, in the discussion part, so cinema, there is a Antonio Gramsci's theory of hegemony enriches this analysis by showing how ruling groups secure dominance not by force but by building cultural consent. The EWS amendment passed with little parliamentary opposition required broad social legitimacy. Films celebrating middle class struggles act as vehicles of cultural consent by aligning popular sentiments with state policy. Film theorists like Komoli and Laura Mulvey and all, they argue that cinema's very structure positions spectators into ideological conformity. The immersive experience of narrative closure ensures that audiences identify with protagonists, accept meritocracy, and overlook systemic inequalities. cultural numbness and disappearance of caste. The most significant effect of cinematic narratives is the cultivation of cultural numbness. By repeatedly portraying poverty as caste neutral, film silence debates around caste injustice. The disappearance of caste from cinematic narratives mirrors its disappearance from policy debates, resulting in a public culture that is less critical of policies undermining equity. So, conclusion. EWS reservation represents a fundamental reorientation of India's affirmative action policies, shifting focus from caste-based oppression to class-based poverty. While politically acceptable, this shift undermines the constitutional principles of equity and justice by privileging groups that are historically advantaged. Cinema plays a pivotal role in legitimizing this ideological transformation by erasing caste and foregrounding narratives of merit, aspiration and middle-class struggle. Films naturalize the rationale of EWS. As an ideological state apparatus, cinema cultivates cultural consent, making policies like EWS appear as common sense rather than contested reforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Jitin. Our next speaker is Roman Alemu. He would speak on exploring the role of psychology in promoting Gandhian principles of non-violence, justice, and social harmony. So it's he.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, all. My name is Roman Alemu from Mahatma Gandhi University, PhD in psychology. My native place is from Ethiopia. As an introduction, before we just go to what non-violence in terms in the psychological view and Gandhian view, let's see what violence in psychological view. There are traditional psychologists and there are modern psychologists. So most of the psychologists are focused on violence, especially like Sigmund Freud. He said that there are two kinds of forces in our mind. There is death force and the life force. So the violent behavior is because of this aggression behavior. The aggression behavior is from unconscious part of our mind. As food, the human being has three mind, conscious, semi-conscious, and unconscious part. So this aggression behavior is rooted from deep in our mind, which is not easily observed. The other scholars, evolutionary psychologists, for the root of violation is for survival of the fittest. That means there is competition between the human being to fulfill that life. Somebody may violate the rule. Because of that, if there is violation, then most of the time non-violence will be covered by violence. The other psychologists, they are focused on trauma or anger. A violation occurs because of trauma. For example, in our childhood experience, we may face a problem. For example, abuse and so on. So those wounds leads to what? Aggression. The objective of this presentation is why non-violence has been marginalized within psychological theorists that traditionally focus on aggression and conflict. The method that I try to use is qualitative literature review method, the approach. The source is from different digital libraries and from scholarly blogs. The timeline, those articles from 2005 to 2025. the literature review that I tried to collect, first 15 literatures were collected, then after that 18 literatures were meet the criteria. When we see the findings, let's see psychological perspectives of non-violence. As I said, some of the psychologists are focused on, there are few of course, the majority are focused on violence, but the modern psychologists like positive psychology, peace psychology, that means, few of them they focus on non-violence. If there is adaptive behavior, for example, somebody is flexible and understands somebody, so we cannot violate, Then cognitive psychologists say that if we control our emotion, for example, our feeling sometimes is extremely high and extremely low, if we balance these things, we may not violate. The humanistic view, we have a tendency of just upgrading our growth. Then when we feel our need, we have to what? We have to consider others' rights also. The existential view, we have a freedom of choice. Yeah, we can do everything, and but when we just make our choice, we have to consider others' rights. So non-violence is more focused here. What about the Gandhian philosophy of non-violence, or ahimsa? According to Gandhi, he said non-violence is ahimsa, not the absence of violence. Mahatma Gandhi didn't say there is no violence, but why we focus on violence? Why don't we preach non-violence? Yeah, the idea is like that. So, according to Mahatma Gandhi, this non-violence rooted from what? Truth, empathy. When we understand somebody, when we focus on truth, and there is compassion, so we can what? We can preach non-violence. The aim of Gandhian was to transform both the truth, the empathy, and the compassion, to transform not only for the oppressors, both on the oppressed. These two bodies should practice this idea. How can they practice? How can we practice this non-violence? We have to control ourselves. By dialogue, we can communicate. Yes? By reconciliation, we can exercise non-violence. So let us integrate psychology and Gandhian perspective. The psychologists should focus on what? Non-violence. So those traditional psychologists, as I said, they focus on aggression. So they focused on what? Non-violence. So integrating the integration shifts from psychology, from explaining, we have to discard this area. Which idea? Why people are violent to showing, but we have to focus on how people can live peacefully. What implies this study? For psychologists, they better expand theories on human behavior, they focus on prevention, they focus on healing and resilience. What about for us, for the society? We better exercise justice, promotes equality, harmony. There is one quote, Mahatma Gandhi, he said, non-violence is the greatest force at the disposal of mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The presentations are over now. The floor is open for comments and discussions. Questions as well. Each one has been given 2 minutes for responding to the questions.
discussed in these days. Can you put some light how we can change this generational trauma into healing our future generation?
Thank you very much. Yeah, as I said, the trauma begins from childhood age, according to the psychologists. So, family is the first school, especially mother is the first teacher. So, the way they raise their children matters. That means we have to give emphasis on this parenting style, parenting system. Yeah, as you know, most of at this time, some families they may be democratic way of style they may follow. Another may be they may be autocrat. Yeah, another may be laissez-faire and so on. So from the bottom, if we focus the mixed approach. Yeah. Sometimes we may be democrat, sometimes we may be autocrat, based on the situation, yeah? So, I can say that those childhood experiences that nowadays we are more focused on that age, especially. Once, according to Freud, after 5 age, we can't do anything. But before 5 age, we can solve any problem. We can shape the children. Yeah. So, but if an adolescent age or adult age, if we pass once that age, it is very difficult. We may invest a lot of effort or energy. That is it.
Small thing on it. As you said, family is most important. Next, there is something good what we call role model in our childhood. You will pretend what you see. As a family, we have to follow our children from who our children are learning. When you are sending it to school, you have to follow who is their teacher. If their teacher has bad behavior, has no wisdom, your child becomes the same. So as a family, we have great role. Sending it to school is not enough. You have to follow. Who is teaching? Who is getting care of them? How is their behavior? Who is their role model? You have to follow all this. Thank you.
I should wrap it up with some comments. I have not a specific question to anyone, but I have some concerns about the kind of concerns you presented, especially the Devdarshan, which is very interesting. Vernacular cosmopolitanism and curated tolerance. of Cochin, you have a long tradition of cosmopolitanism, people coming together for different purposes, and you have basically two, process faith and trade, which brought in a kind of cosmopolitan society in Cochin, and which would overwhelm the others. Curated pluralism, which is, as you presented, it's a manufactured or curated kind of cosmopolitanism, which stands against the natural kind of cosmopolitanism induced by either by trade or by faith, which would overwhelm the other. A question to you.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Now you have presented two kinds of cosmopolitanism coexist with each other. One is a natural one, which emerged as a culmination of two different practices. One is trade. Trade has brought in a lot of societies, communities from different parts of the world. And faith also has brought in a lot of communities over there. And just opposite to that, you have a curated pluralism of cosmopolitanism. Which one is more dominant? Which one overwhelms the others?
I think the exotic one, which is the curated one, overwhelms the
Curated one or the other one?
curated one.
Curated one. To you, it's a very interesting kind of presentation you have done, but most of the things are of 1990s and 2000. Things has been changed a lot with new filmmakers who have come from marginalized communities. We have several examples of movie makers who come from Cochin, from Malabar. They have made a lot of changes to the situation. So, do we have certain films which you can? So films are of mainly 90s. Aryan is from 1991. Do we have any new films to illustrate your, to substantiate your argument, or most of the things are of 90s and 2000s?
Hello? Sir, I take films that are mostly, put forward an idea, that put forward the stories of, Tarzan. Not the problems of them, but we are brought into a situation like there is.
So my question is actually there is a kind of assertion of filmmakers from these communities. Previously, voices were completely unheard of.
Yeah.
Now you have a set of filmmakers who are from these communities and they have made deep inroads into the film industry.
Yes.
From Malabar, from Cochin, their presence is very visible.
Yes.
So that things have been changed, or still you have the same sort of situation which we have seen in 90s and 2000s.
So, I think things haven't changed that bit. There is still, when this thing overpours into social media and all, when we read that things also, the attack or the angriness against against various stars, and we read those things also. So I think that the impact that films like Kuru or the films like Kadal makes is that it's minimal. I feel like it's minimal, and the majoritarian view still persists. That's why the attack against them is more. If there is Kuru, there is attack against the film, there is attack against the actor in it. So still some notion